Hello, welcome to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, the culture cast caught at the corner of curation and castration.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Decided to switch it up.
Okay.
Get ready. Yeah. Well, what worse castration anxiety is there than to be worried that someone's not going to like the thing that you like?
That's true.
Yeah.
You know, when you just expect to hear masturbation and then you hear castration, those are two very different.
Yeah, that was the intended effect.
Oh, it worked on me anyway. Can't say for you Wheezy fans out there listening
at home. Yeah, can't Lil Wayne, just like to say a personal hello to you.
We know you're listening, Wheezy.
This came up on your Google alert.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. How you doing, Curtis?
I am great, Ben.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, it's been good. The days are getting shorter. The night's longer.
The sadness is bigger.
Sadness is growing.
It sure is. It's already dark out. We just started.
Yeah. Yep. I can't see anything out the window.
Yeah. So we are back.
Yeah.
We're gonna finish up our Lil Wayne discussion this week. Last week we talked about the Carter 1 and 2. Today our homework was to listen to the Carter 3, the Carter 4, and a little bonus homework was extra credit, I think they call that.
Yeah, extra credit.
Shit.
Bonus homework.
I'm the worst rapper ever. I would not be good at that. The Carter documentary, which came out, it was filmed and came out between the Carter 3 and 4.
Between the Carter 2 and 3. Oh, no, it was filmed before the Carter 3 came out
right
after.
Before it came out,
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah,
right.
and then okay.
All right.
So,
yeah.
what did you think of the Carter 3?
I really liked it. It's probably my favorite of the 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to decouple it from the documentary, which I was really impressed by. I watched the documentary and then listened to the album because I figured, get a sense for what's going on in his head from the documentary and then listen to the album, and it really enhanced my sense for exactly what Lil Wayne is doing in these songs. I think the Carter 3 is the most mature and complete of the 4 albums. Maybe doesn't have the most bangers, but the first verse on A Milli is the best verse Lil Wayne has put on any of these albums.
That was a big thing for me to go back to that particular song because, as I said in the last episode, I've been a fan of Lil Wayne before I was really super into hip-hop. So going back and listening to these with an ear for that, I found myself wondering this song that I used to like a lot, is it going to hold up? Or is this, song that I don't really even remember what it is from the title? Are there going to be any bars in here that oh my God, I never noticed that? Mm-hmm. And A Milli is just as sick. It's probably even cooler than it was when I used to listen to it. I think that I can't imagine, this is a weird kind of thing to think about maybe, but I like to imagine what it must have been like for anybody that may have been in the room when he just because it sounds like that's all one take. It sounds like he had kind of thought about what that, and then
that's how he records most of his shit, right? It's not line by line,
right?
He thinks through a whole verse and then records a whole verse.
Yeah,
that's the impression I got from the documentary.
That's kind of the big change from the Carter 1 and 2 to anything beyond that. I think the Carter 1 and 2 are great hip hop albums, or at least great standard hip hop albums. They're fine, I think. And then with the Carter 3, Lil Wayne moved into this style of writing that he stopped writing anything down, which from watching the documentary. Did you learn that documentary, or did you learn that beforehand?
I learned that beforehand because he says it in A Milli.
Oh, right on. That's true. And I think that kind of unlocked this new part of his brain. I think that really broke some barriers for his limitations. And it kind of reminded me, I had read, I think it was a book by Patton Oswalt, Silver Screen Fiend. Have you read?
I haven't read it. I've heard of it.
It's just a book about how much he loves old movies.
Oh, good.
And he talks about Van Gogh in the book, and I don't know. So I don't. This is where I learned this, so I don't know if this is like super factual. But he, at least it's enough to be in a Patton Oswalt book.
Super factual, factual, or counterfactual.
Yeah.
Those are that's the spectrum.
He mentions that Van Gogh was a post-impressionist, and he
just an impressionist, wasn't he?
I thought
was he post?
I thought it was.
I don't know, man.
But Van Gogh kind of had a lot of mental health issues throughout his life, and as Patton Oswalt pointed out, when the Vincent van Gogh had this biggest breakthrough in some of his art styles was when he stopped looking at things and painting them. He started painting things from memory. Mm-hmm. And that was when all these weird little insights into his crazy brain started to show themselves without him knowing he was letting you see them. Mm-hmm. And I thought of that when I was listening to this, because I'm not saying Lil Wayne is a Van Gogh of rap music. I mean, he's certainly a Van Gogh of rap music.
I'm willing to say that Lil Wayne is on a level with Van Gogh.
We can take it there.
Yeah.
We're eliminating barriers.
I'm ready to say that.
Categories.
There we go. In one take, we just broke down the category between rap music and impressionist painters.
Perfect. And I think that was a very similar thing for Lil Wayne. Like, I'm going to try this style of, writing and recording, and it really changed the way he makes music and how people perceive his music. And I think that I maybe writing felt too constricting, or maybe when he thinks about something too much, he limits himself. But really, to see on the Carter 3 this like unhinged Lil Wayne just like spitting these crazy bars on banger after banger, I think that was a really cool move for him stylistically.
Well, it's crazy. Rap music is like built into his brain at this point.
Yeah,
he's been rapping since he was 8, right?
Yeah,
and from what we know about the brain is that the brain kind of changes itself to suit whatever you're doing, and that the longer you do something and the more focus you apply to it, the better your brain is going to be at it, right? We all have our brains are tremendously plastic. They can be molded and shaped in all kinds of different ways. And Lil Wayne, for 2 decades, since he was 8 years old and started rapping, through, what did he start? He stopped writing things down when he was 24, 25.
Yeah.
Through that whole time, he was building his brain to be like a rap genius.
He must have hit his 10,000 hours in that point in his life.
Yeah, he spent 10,000 hours writing and performing rap songs, and his brain just kind of it shed the early rocket stages of writing shit down and realized that hip hop is kind of an oral poetic tradition, though Wheezy himself denies being a poet. I don't know. A lot of stuff in that documentary, like we were talking about, I'm not sure what to take at face value and what is Lil Wayne trying to tell us there? Because obviously by any definition of poetic tradition, hip hop is a poetic tradition. But is it useful to call it a poetic tradition? That's kind of putting a category on it, right? And what we're supposed to be doing is breaking down categories. And it definitely, as insofar as it does resemble a poetic tradition, it's a unique poetic tradition in the modern day. And if it has any analogs, it's probably closer to the oral poets, like the composers of the Odyssey and shit. I said composers. All you Odyssey nerds out there, I'm subscribing to the multiple authors theory.
Oh.
Yep. Throwing down the gauntlet. Sort of. I think that Homer was the one person to write it down, but I do think that the poem evolved over time with many hands on it. Welcome to the Odyssey cast, everybody.
That's fine. We're just eliminating more categories.
Eliminate more categories.
You did not know when you started listening to this podcast about Wheezy, we were going to be talking about the Odyssey.
Yep, we trapped you.
And now you're going to have to learn something, unfortunately. We're not just going to jerk off Lil Wayne this whole time.
Yeah,
Although we could.
Anyway, back to jerking off Lil Wayne.
Back to jerking off Lil Wayne.
Holy smokes, is this album good?
It really is. I think last week when I had said that the Carter 2, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I believe I had said it's my favorite Carter album.
You did. Yeah, you said it was kind of downhill from there.
Yeah. So here's how I feel about that now. I think it depends how you want to frame it. I think if you are super into hip hop, if you are a hip hop head and you are looking for a rapper's rapper, I think the Carter 2 might be your go-to album. I think if you just like music and popular music and you just like to hear things that sound good, I think the Carter 3 has a more eclectic sound and definitely more bangers on it. And not to say that it doesn't boast some great rhyming, but I think most of that is kind of like front-loaded towards the first part of the album. I'm looking at the track listing, or looking for the track listing. But I think like 3P, Mr. Carter, A Milli, Got Money, those 4 songs are, kind of like bars. And then you get into some more...
Oh, come on, though. Dr. Carter, man.
I was going to say, you get into some more experimental stuff as you get in further. And Dr. Carter is... It's both. It's I think it's a very experimental style of a song that also has bars. Kind of like bars that I think, not now, but almost get slept on. Like, they don't jump out at the listener as much as the lines and say a milli, but the more you listen to it, you're like, oh shit, that's fucking fire.
Well, his concepts, he carries a concept like nobody else because he's composing the whole verse in his head beforehand and just like doing it without reading it. It's just what's in his brain. He's able to maintain, like, all right, what does it mean to have swagger? Here's an entire verse about what it means to have swagger. Man, that song blew me. That song blew my doors open. Sorry. Just a general apology to everybody.
You don't need to apologize.
I misspoke. It was
all getting clipped. We're gonna start. Yes. We're gonna start over.
Shut it down.
Yeah.
It's been several episodes since we've shut it down. It's time to bring that back. But you were right. Phone Home also is a hell of a song.
That was another
Wheezy.
one. Yeah, that I'm glad. Like, when I had said on the podcast without really thinking about it, I mean, even though it was the truth, I was like, this song pretty much got me in the hip hop. Because it got me in Lil Wayne, which got me in the hip hop. So like, I can really. This song is where it starts for me. So going back, I was like, man, I hope this song doesn't suck. And it doesn't.
And luckily, it's really good.
It's really good, and I think it's like, I think some of the concepts in that song aren't that in depth. I think it's some pretty like T-ball like metaphors and setups and punchlines.
Yeah.
But I think that was why I liked it so much, was that it was like, oh, I don't have to, break out a dictionary or an encyclopedia to realize why this rhyme is dope, as, you kind of get with some like Wu-Tang type stuff, which I would get further in down the road.
Yeah. Well, it's also the beginning of his like whole "I'm not a human being" idea, which is really fascinating to hear him say, especially having watched the documentary and kind of getting the sense that he sees himself as being at a genuine remove from the rest of humanity. Like, just those shots of him, it's like, yeah, Wheezy just works 24/7. Like, just him standing in the studio, like, bopping his head along to some song that he's working on and, like, showing it to Babyface, and Babyface is like, yeah, that's cool.
The fact, too, I mean, that like, his music is always playing throughout that documentary, and it's not because it's the soundtrack. Like,
right.
Lil Wayne legitimately just listens to his own music all the time. And
he says why is the thing. I had always heard that. He says why. It's not an ego thing. He's working on it.
You see,
he's working 24/7.
Here's the thing about that, though.
All right.
In that, and I'm not saying I disagree with that. In that documentary, he says that, and I think he's right to that, but there were a couple pretty cringy, in my opinion, parts of that documentary where he's like looking at the camera and like lip syncing his own rhymes.
Dude,
like,
those were my favorite parts.
Like, just like basking in how sick are these rhymes that I wrote.
They are really sick. They are really sick.
They are. Yeah. I mean, you gotta be able to step away from your own art a little bit. Like, even if we had the best podcast on earth, how weird would it be if we only listened to Ben and Curt till it hurts?
Curtis, podcasts are not art. I'm saying that. I'm making a stand. I know. Well, I mean, let's not be too hasty, man.
Whatever you create. If you worked at a fucking Subway and wouldn't eat a sandwich anybody else
they call
made,
them sandwich artists. That's a joke. Sandwiches ain't art, all right? Like, if you're an artist, you need to look at your own art and reflect upon what you did. Wheezy already has such a remove from the creation of his art because he's not writing any of his shit down. So he needs to have that reflective moment. You know, he needs to be able to sit down, listen to it, and think like, well, what did I do well on that song? What would I do differently next time? What is something I'm very proud of? Do I think I did a very good job, or do I think I did a subpar job? And do I want this on the next album? Is this mixtape material, or is this just for the personal vaults?
So I agree with that, but I really think he does get a little too into it himself, especially when he has basically nothing to compare it to because he doesn't listen to anything else. So how can you rightfully say you're the best at something if you're not looking at what your peers are doing?
Man, you just know.
You just
know. And you know what? Lil Wayne ain't wrong. He has a really good claim by many, not measures, because it's not an objective stance, but by many people's reckonings, my own included, he has a very valid claim to being one of the greatest rappers of all time. And the fact that he's able to be such a good rapper without listening to other people's shit, I think tells us something about hip-hop. It's a spiritual experience, man. You don't need to like go out and listen to a bunch of other people's music to know that your shit is like a direct conduit to what you're feeling inside, that you are taking something divine and pushing it out through your mouth and recording it and making what you feel into something that other people can experience. That's what Lil Wayne's doing, man.
But well, and it's hard for me because I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I think how can you grow and develop if you aren't, I mean, it can be like, the skill set can be anything, like, sometimes a style will be more important than an actual skill. Like, you can be, if you're practicing guitar and you're becoming a very good guitarist, if you never listened to anyone play guitar, how could you get that much better at it?
Well, but on the other side, you have someone like Joni Mitchell, Joni Mitchell doesn't use standard tunings because she something with her hands. She had polio and she was very young, so she didn't imitate other guitarists because she couldn't, use their same tunings. She developed her own style, and by my estimation, she's one of the greatest guitarists of all time. There's something about music that separates it from a craft, I think, that makes it like a pure art, that you're actually able to take the stuff of your soul and send it out into the world. All Lil Wayne needs to do is listen to his last song that he recorded and try to make something better than that. And I think that's all he has been doing for the last 20 years, and it's working out really damn well. It's paying dividends. His strategy is working. I
agree, but I think the peak of Lil Wayne's career was this album, and I think after this it goes downhill. I mean, he has some high points here and there, but I think learning this ability helped him a lot. But I think, I don't know if he would have gotten better if he had. I mean, he collaborates with people, but I don't know. It's a weird. I don't know. It's hard for me to get behind him thinking he is the best. It's almost like there's like just a genius trapped inside the little goblin that is Lil Wayne. Like, he just has all these amazing thoughts and ideas that kind of have a hard time getting out, and apparently getting over a beat somehow lets him spit some of it out. But if you try to do like an interview with him, it's like,
he's clearly not interested in interviews. He clearly does not give two shits about talking to another human being.
Do you? This is completely off topic, but the Joni Mitchell thing reminded me of it. Are you familiar with Tony Iommi, with how that whole his guitar playing thing. So the random tidbit of information: Tony Iommi worked at like a sheet metal factory before he was famous, and a piece of sheet metal came down and like chopped the tip of his fingertips off.
Yikes.
So to play guitar, he had to tune his strings lower so there would be less tension on his sensitive fingers. Essentially, kind of that's like what created the down tuning for what became heavy metal.
Wow.
So I definitely I'm on the page with you about Joni Mitchell, and I don't listen to her, but I think you can reinvent something. So I would say now I was maybe a little too strong on that. There are definitely examples of, you know, not having peers that helps you get past what other people are doing, but I don't know, man. I think listening to your own music exclusively all the time, especially when you're super into it, is weird.
I loved those. I loved the segments of him doing those like weird mute performances where he's not even lip syncing. He's just like performing a very, like, not a stage performance, but quite an intimate performance of these songs directly to the camera, looking straight into the frame, right into your eyes. Yeah, I loved it. Those, because he didn't allow the filmmakers to do any interviews with him.
Yep.
I think those kind of stand in for the interviews. That gives you a sense of what he's thinking and feeling when he's recording these lines. And I thought it was a really unique choice, and it was something that I really enjoyed. And Lil Wayne does not need to listen to any other rappers. End of story.
Okay.
But can you argue with his results, Curtis?
I mean, I can.
Well, okay. You actually already you said that you think it's kind of been downhill since the Carter 3.
Yeah.
And that may or may not be true. I haven't listened to enough of his shit to say whether or not that is true. But aren't there extenuating circumstances that might also make that the case?
I mean,
as in, like, he
an addiction to fucking lean.
An addiction to lean, like he's on a very sad addiction to lean, like that bit in the documentary when his friend is like, "Yeah, I can't ride on the bus with him when he's like that."
Yeah,
it really bummed me out.
That documentary was so strange in a lot of ways to me, because I feel like we were talking about this before we started recording. I feel like there's almost a lack of focus. Like the documentary, it doesn't feel like it has a narrative, but I guess it doesn't really like need one, because I guess you could just argue the point of it is like, we're gonna follow Lil Wayne around for 2 months, and
who is this guy?
This is what happened. Speaking of which, I don't want to get too far off on a tangent, but I think probably the coolest part in that documentary, unfortunately, was in like the first 5 minutes of it, when he opens up his suitcase and like all he had was like a hoodie, a 6-inch wad of $100 bills, lean, and a vitamin water bottle, and like a book of naked women. Like that's his carry-on. Like, what else is there?
It's well established that you can tell a lot about someone from what they pack, and no one packs like Lil Wayne.
That was something else.
Yeah, that was good. That's the intro to who Lil Wayne is.
So you mentioned the interviews a few minutes ago, and that is just, interviews with him are weird. They always end with him being angry and leaving the interview, and this is what makes me kind of question what's going on in this guy's head, because he'll say some shit that barely makes sense, and then if anyone says anything remotely close to, "Can you elaborate on that?" he's like, "Nope, I'm fucking done.
Fuck off."
And I can't help but feel like he is so afraid he's going to say something dumb that he just projects this, like, if you're not on my fucking level, I'm not going to waste my time with you. I don't know if he actually is like that. Like, that Lil Wayne is so hard to, like, peg as, like, super genius. Like, idiot savant. Like, I have a hard time, like...
I fall squarely on the super genius side. There is no question in my mind that Lil Wayne is a super genius who maybe doesn't even, like, know the extent of his own genius. He's, like, one of those people that just... Because, well, it's like I said earlier, the whole, like, starting rapping when you're 8 years old and then becoming Lil Wayne thing is so unique. No one else is like that, right? So, and I think it connects to the interviews as well, because why should he do interviews? He's been, like, revealing himself to everybody since he was 8 years old. An 8-year-old does not know how to hide anything about himself when he's rapping. Neither does a teenager, you know? So probably the first 10 years of Lil Wayne's professional hip-hop career was just like emotional vomit. Just like, here's exactly what I'm thinking and feeling. And why should he have to explain himself to a bunch of fucking European assholes who want to ask him about his influences? Like, no fucking shit. Listen to the music. You can decide for yourself if there are those influences. Clearly, that Swedish guy who was asking him about jazz just wanted to, like, get into a fucking dick measuring contest with him about, like, oh, do you think that this particular jazz New Orleans person, this particular brass band... I'm sorry, I'm doing a very offensive Swedish accent.
So, that guy was definitely a dickhead. But, I don't know, man. That's, unfortunately, for what it is, if you don't want to have obligations, if you don't want to do interviews or be in places that you don't want to feel like being at, I just made myself think of that kid who tries to... Have you ever had a dream that fucking... that was a thought like that. Then you can still be a rapper. The thing is, you're going to be rapping with your buddies at one of their houses. Like, being famous in America, being a celebrity, means being places when you don't want to be there, doing things like interviews, because Americans, we love these parasocial relationships. You want to be friends with the artists that you like. That shit ain't healthy. That shit ain't healthy. It's not, but it's fucked up. That's what it is,
but it doesn't have to be. It does not have to be. That's what it's become because we've gotten into this symbiotic relationship with the artists that we love. In 10 years, I don't think Lil Wayne's going to be talking to people. I don't think it's going to be possible to get a photograph of Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne's going to become the fucking Thomas Pynchon of hip-hop music. Thomas Pynchon, an author who has never been photographed since 1955 or whatever. Lil Wayne does not need to do anything that he doesn't want to do. And I don't think he's going to keep doing things that he doesn't want to do because he clearly hates interviews. He doesn't get any joy out of it. He would rather be recording music during that time. And you can tell that's why he's so surly during his interviews, because he's pissed off that they're keeping him from recording music. You know?
I mean, you're right, but I think that doesn't change the expectation.
The expectation is that when you're an up-and-coming artist, you're going to get your name out there. Lil Wayne doesn't need to get his name out there. Lil Wayne is Lil Wayne. He's one of the pillars of hip-hop. He's the single most famous rapper to come out of New Orleans, right? I can't think of another one. He's easily the most famous one. He's one of the most famous Southern rappers of all time. And he's just base level one of the most famous rappers, bar none, of all time.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to do interviews. I don't want him to do interviews. Well, I want him to, but I don't want him to do anything that tortures him. But I love hearing the words that are in his head, and I kind of like hearing him like pissed off, surly, and just not interested in talking to people who aren't on his level.
I don't know, man.
Well, what's your argument for why Lil Wayne's going to need to keep doing interviews?
Because he is Lil Wayne, and the people that listen to his music want to hear his thoughts. They want to know other things about Lil Wayne. Like,
do they? Do we?
That's why. I mean, why would we watch? Why would we watch interviews with other celebrities if we didn't care about them personally? When you're in movies or making music and you're affecting people's lives in a positive and emotional way, you get these connections with them, even if they don't know anything about you or that you exist. And there's always going to be this thirst for more of that.
I really don't think there always needs to be that. I think that this state of affairs started with fucking Beatlemania, man. Like, I don't think before Beatlemania there was this fervor over celebrities. And I really don't think that the fervor over celebrities is healthy. So I don't think that it's the natural state of affairs, and I don't think that it's healthy. I think that it's largely supported by the way television and the internet work right now. And, like, television and the internet were not planned. They just kind of happened. Right. We just kind of barfed those things out and then started using them without thinking about what it was doing to us or our culture. I could see an upswell of artists going their own way,
Similar. It makes me think of Vince Staples with that AMA he did this summer.
Hell yeah, he fucking hated that. He could not have been less interested.
And I mean, I'm still on the same page though of maybe it is an inappropriate relationship and maybe it does need to change, but I mean, it is what it is, and I don't think Lil Wayne is saying, like, you know what, you guys have an unhealthy relationship with me, so I'm not going to do these interviews because I don't want to feed into this obsession you have with me. I think he's probably pretty into people being obsessed with him, because I think he's pretty obsessed with himself, which, not to say that that's a bad thing, but I just think that it goes back to that thing of, like, not being able to tell if Lil Wayne is a genius or an idiot. When somebody asks him a question, sometimes he doesn't even have to start to answer it because his publicist will say, next question.
Yeah.
And I can't tell if they are saying, don't fucking waste Lil Wayne's time, or he's not going to have a fucking clue how to answer that question.
It's the second one.
Please don't make him sound dumb.
Guaranteed it's the second one. Or like, we don't want a fucking pull quote to come out of this. That's the last thing we need. And it is the last thing that they need. I don't think that... Man, leave Lil Wayne alone. Just leave him be. He doesn't want to talk to you guys. He doesn't want to talk to me. He doesn't want to tell me his thoughts because he's already telling me his thoughts directly through the medium of hip-hop.
That was a big... For me, that was a big realization that I had that I think I touched on last week, where Lil Wayne was the first rapper that I liked, so I was used to watching or reading interviews with celebrities, whether it's a metal musician or a movie star or whatever. And so my interest in Lil Wayne was like, I'm going to watch some Lil Wayne interviews. And then realizing that they're like hot garbage in the sense, if you're looking for what you're getting from a fucking Lady Gaga interview, you're not going to get that with a Lil Wayne interview.
Yeah.
And now I thoroughly enjoy Wheezy because I think I'd said to you before we started recording, he is a musician. I can listen to him make music, and that is all he exists for in my life. Like, he makes dope rap music. I don't care about his political thoughts. I mean, I don't care that... a few years ago, he said he was going to quit being a rapper and become a professional skateboarder.
Nice. I remember that, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Also... How about that interview question when that was in a different interview. So there's an interview where Nightline, I think, is like, or Dateline is interviewing him, and he's like, this was in the kind of the height of the skateboarding thing when he had like a personal skate park like built in his home or something. And they're like, what is it you like about skateboarding, or what does it do for you? And he gave the most third grader response. He's like, I like landing the tricks. It makes me feel good. Like, to say I can do this kind of trick. Like, wow. Like,
All right, cool.
Good answer.
That about nails it down.
I think they were expecting this, like, I just have all this pressure, and this is just a adrenaline release of, it just...
Which, who knows if that's true or not?
Yeah.
Right? Who knows if the extent of it, probably all he wanted to say to them was like, I don't know, it's fun to land the tricks. Yeah. It's like when you listen to, Aesop Rock, the rapper Aesop Rock. Yeah. There was this in I think his second to last album, I can't remember what it's called, Skeleton. He did like a series of videos where he went through the songs one by one and he gave his interpretations of what the songs meant. And Aesop Rock is another guy who seems to really not enjoy doing interviews or talking about his music at all, because it's all in the music. You should be able to just listen to the music and come to your own conclusions. So as he's going through these songs, there's this one song called, it's not Bob's Donuts. It might be Bob's Donuts. that's about this donut shop. And it's full of this like incredible like religious imagery, this intricate, narrative of going to a donut shop as being like a sacred space that you go to that reminds you of home. And his answer to what it was about was like, yeah, I don't know. When I went to LA, Bob's Donuts was like this nice little slice of home. It was just it's just a song about donuts, Well,
I think one of the things that I think when you're writing rhymes, it's a very intense skill set. If you take a good set of bars and you analyze why they're good bars, I think it makes you. Well, so I don't know how should I. So there's a song on the album Liquid Swords. I think it's a Killer Priest verse where the line in the song is, "Too much knowledge breaks up the rhyme," and the whole song is him kind of giving you his belief system. The song's called Bible. It's an acronym for Brief Instructions Before Leaving Earth, and he's giving you kind of his rules in life and his morals. But he kind of puts this thing in. He's like, too much knowledge breaks up the rhyme, kind of in the context of that song, meaning I'm trying to tell you this very important information, but you're still listening to a song. So I have to make it palatable in the sense of a song. It still has to rhyme. It still has to have flow. So I think that people naturally want to hear from rappers because they deliver you language. And I think maybe people want to hear what they have to say, because if they have these great ideas that they can form and fit and warp to rhyme into a set of bars, what are their thoughts going to be when they're just giving me that knowledge? And I think Lil Wayne is incapable of giving you that knowledge outside of just letting it flow out of his brain. I think even writing it down was... I would not be surprised if the writing process for Lil Wayne was very, very challenging. I think that's probably why he got so much better when he finally gave up writing things down. So I don't know. I think that there's a natural curiosity towards hearing, these people. You want to hear more of their language, and I think it can be a letdown with Lil Wayne until you realize, no, he's just take the good stuff. That's all you need. There's plenty of it.
Yeah.
So best and worst songs off the Carter 3.
All right, let me see. I gotta look at a track list because I don't like A Milli is probably my favorite.
I would say that's also probably I think that's probably the strongest rap song. I'll spit out some of mine while you get your track list up.
Mm-hmm.
I think Three-Peat was really good. It's a pretty hype intro. Mr. Carter's dope with a dope Jay-Z thing. The whole first half, like I said, was like really front-loaded in my opinion with like the hip-hop stuff. And then you get some weird kind of stuff like Comfortable and Tie My Hands.
And Lollipop.
Yeah, that's...
How about that moment in the documentary, though, when it's like, look at all these precious little white girls listening to Lollipop.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to feel about that? What exactly is the documentarian trying to project to us? Like, is this like a hip hop is corrupting the youth kind of thing?
There are so many ideas that are kind of given to you a little bit in that documentary and never really, developed. There's the whole is Lil Wayne a drug addict? Yeah, kind of. But we're not really...
Nah, dude.
We don't really have time to talk about it.
Definitely.
He
definitely is. Based on that documentary,
yeah.
He has a problem. And because that problem was that way in 2008 and hasn't been fixed now, it's probably way worse.
Yeah.
It is probably way worse.
I'm surprised he stays so scrawny with... I believe people that drink lean, the amount of sugar they have to take... They get real chubby.
I doubt Lil Wayne eats. Probably the reason he gets most of his calories from lean at this point, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, he's in the studio all day. When's he gonna... Can you imagine Lil Wayne making himself a sandwich? Yeah. What's that look like?
I bet it's sick.
I wonder what he puts on his sandwich. Maybe that should be what we do every episode. Every episode tradition is we decide the person we're talking about, what does their sandwich look like.
Oh.
Nah, I'm discarding that idea already. But my point is, Lil Wayne is definitely a drug addict, and I think the documentary, I think the documentary makes that more than apparent, mostly based on the interview with his friend.
Yeah,
his friend knows he's a drug addict. His friend knows that he is deep in the underworld right now.
I think that's one of the saddest kind of undertones of that documentary is that Lil Wayne is like one of the most famous celebrities on earth, and he's surrounded himself with yes men. And if you really care about Lil Wayne, you realize that he has some very hard problems. And as soon as you start to express concern for that, you get pushed away and replaced with another yes man. But they really don't talk about it that much. It's kind of a weird, like, there's just a lot of stuff in that documentary that it really is just kind of a snapshot into his life, and it feels weird to have all those things be themes without actually talking about any of it.
It feels like more of a portrait of a real person.
Yeah.
You know, because there's no beginning, middle, and end to, like, Lil Wayne as a drug addict.
Yeah.
There's just the fact. You know, the fact, like, laid out before you raw. That's one of the reasons I like documentaries that don't have voiceover. Like, if it doesn't have voiceover, it feels a lot less polemical. I don't know, polemic or polemical or something. It feels a lot less argumentative. It feels a lot less like it's trying to convince you of something. And that's one of the things I like about that documentary, is that it doesn't try to develop themes. I think themes and development of themes are good for fiction, because in fiction you have a whole universe to play with. But in a documentary, as soon as you start trying to take the real world and mold it to fit archetypal themes that would be present in, like, narrative fiction, you're warping it. You know, you're excluding certain things because they don't fit the narrative theme, or you're including certain things and sort of misrepresenting their importance because they do fit your narrative theme that you picked out. So I wouldn't say across the board I prefer the style that the Carter is in, but I think that for the type of public figure Lil Wayne is, I think that style fits really well.
How about, I'm curious to find out some of your other... One of the things that really stuck out to me in that documentary was when they're all hanging out in the studio and Lil Wayne talks about how he was
raped at 11
yeah. and loved it, and they're kind of ribbing,
and that was the day Lil Wayne was born.
Yeah,
that was the day I became Lil Wayne.
They're ribbing this 15-year-old
yeah.
for not having had sex with anyone because, you know, Lil Wayne had a daughter when he was 15. What was your take on that? I found that pretty disturbing. Like,
I mean, is it? I don't know if it's true or not. Is the thing. If it's true, then it seems like it might have something to do with Lil Wayne's lean addiction.
Yeah.
Like he has some demons. You know, he has some stuff that he could work out if you know, he sat down with a therapist instead of treating the studio like his therapist.
I don't know if a therapist could understand anything he says.
I bet if you got into a one-on-one conversation with Lil Wayne that he was confident was not going to be publicized, that you could get some really good stuff out of him. That you could have a really nice conversation with him, especially if he knew that you were not going to ask him about his music.
Yeah.
If you were just going to ask him about himself, the man, not the celebrity Lil Wayne, but the man Dwayne. What was your take on it?
On what? Oh,
on the
what we were just talking about,
the story of Lil Wayne being sexually assaulted as a child. Suck Lil Wayne's dick. It's the Lil Wayne's Lil Dick. Like, is that if he made that up, then that is already disturbing. But if that was an actual quote like that, it seems like you can kind of see the contours of that situation and how a young celebrity might find himself in that position and not quite know what to think of it. But I'm no child psychologist, but I can tell you that if you're getting your dick sucked at 11, you feel at best conflicted about it. You don't. Maybe you don't hate it. I don't know, but maybe you also feel guilty because you think you should hate it, or you feel guilty for not telling people about it. There's a lot of emotions. A child is not ready to have their little dick sucked. I think that we as a society have agreed about that.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
No.
I didn't mean to keep going on that.
I think it paints a really sinister image of Wheezy's relationship with Birdman, because if you look at one end of the spectrum of their relationship, you have Lil Wayne grew up without a father figure, Birdman swooped in, hey, and became that father figure, helped him hone a skill, gave him a career, sent him further than he could ever take himself, probably. And but on the other hand, you have those weird, like, they're very, like, especially in the documentary, very, like, Godfather-esque, like, allusions to Birdman. Like, he's there, but he doesn't really say much in the documentary. You hear the story about him throwing women at young Wheezy when he's just a little kid, and he kind of does that weird, like, where he buys him that Escalade or whatever it was. It wasn't an Escalade, but...
It was a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, buys him that vehicle. And, I don't know. I think that I can see why Lil Wayne... It must have been unfortunate for Lil Wayne to be like, yeah, these fucking people want to do a documentary about me because I'm so fucking awesome. And then to see their portrayal, either their portrayal or maybe what is actually, you didn't realize kind of what you are, maybe. That wasn't really a coherent thought.
I feel like Lil Wayne knows who he is and how he looks. I didn't get the feeling from watching that documentary that he was out of touch with himself. I got the feeling that his demons come not from being out of touch with who he is and what he needs, but from the enormity of the challenge of coming to terms with what his life is.
I think he's very in touch with himself, but very out of touch with the world. So doesn't understand how weird or unacceptable or whatever his thoughts and actions are.
Are they unacceptable?
I mean, I think that I don't know about that.
I think weird fits. I think unacceptable doesn't feel right to me for that.
I don't know. I think that there's a very
We're getting really down in the weeds on this Wheezy thing.
We are.
There's something here. There's something here, though, man.
We probably went too deep into this.
No, sorry. I apologize at home to everybody. We already talk kind of slow, but the things might slow down because I really want to keep talking about this. We have some surprisingly complex feelings about Lil Wayne and the specifically.
We shouldn't have watched the documentary. We could have kept this at a surface level.
This whole thing is about the documentary. We keep trying to talk about these albums, but it always comes back to the documentary, so keep going on that thought.
Lil Wayne is certainly weird, and I think that there is this... It's one of those things where I can't tell which way he approaches his behavior. Like, he has a very kind of rude persona of, like, don't waste my time, and I care about fucking lean weed and making music.
Mm-hmm. Money,
yeah.
Yeah, money above everything.
But I think that, I don't know, I think he is very out of touch. I will say that. And he just doesn't seem to know or care a whole lot about the world around him or to open up to other people.
Well, what about the prayer that he offers before the show?
How fucking weird was that?
I didn't find it weird at all. I think that it's clearly a very personal thing because he doesn't even rap about it. But Lil Wayne comes across to me as a deeply religious man in the documentary, and like a thoughtful man, like almost a theologian. You know, like he says money above everything, but what does money represent? Or is there something even above money? This religious moral ideal that he maybe isn't living, but that he possesses and is aspiring towards. You know, like, why did you find it weird?
It just seemed so out of place compared to everything else that he kind of does I don't think that there's ever. I don't. I have a weird thing with religion anyway, but it just seems like why? It feels like a very superficial relationship. Like it feels like being thankful towards God because you acknowledge that you've been blessed with all these great things in life, but not really wanting to care to look into it more than that. Like
look into what? The religion, the God
looking
thing?
into God or your place on earth or your relationship with God. It's just like a weird. It's like people that, I don't know. I see same thing. I know I have like a weird religion thing, but like non-religious. How should I even fucking say this?
It's okay. Slow it down. Think about it.
Yeah. I just think that a lot of people have a very superficial relationship with God, and I think that Lil Wayne showed that by not having that be a part of any aspect of his life, except we'll say a quick prayer before I go on stage, It just seems like a weird ritualistic behavior that isn't really based in a whole lot, I guess.
Well, ritual is the root of religion, I would say. Not linguistically, but I think there's a good argument to be made for the idea that most religion comes from sacrificial rituals. And that I think that prayer is also... You can draw a lineage from prayer to sacrificial ritual. And the prayer in the documentary before the show is I would say the only moment that I remember where his religion comes to the forefront. But that doesn't mean that it's not present in everything else in his life. It just means that it's not something that he talks about.
I did.
And the substance of that prayer is fucking solid, man. Like, that is a good prayer. Like, I hope this show goes well, and I hope everyone gets home safe. Like, that's... What else is there? He's not thanking God for his success. He's saying, like, hope this show goes well, and I hope everybody is safe. That is a perfect prayer in my book. So if maybe not maybe, like, it's that one-on-one conversation with Wheezy thing. It's obviously an impossibility because he's not interested in confronting what's going on inside of himself. At least not yet. Like, you need to be willing to fix your problems and acknowledge that you have a problem, and I think Lil Wayne is somewhere in the middle of that journey right now. But if he were to sit down with a therapist or a priest that he trusted or something and just know that the conversation was not going to be publicized, I think some really deep shit would come out.
Gotta get Father Karras in here.
Yeah, get Father Karras. Now, do we want Father Karras or do we want the fucking transformed Father Karras from The Exorcist 3 to, like, all right, Wheezy, what do you think about these deep symbolic ramblings?
I don't know. There was that interview he did where, the Black Lives Matter one.
Yep.
Where, when saying that he had never experienced racism, acknowledging, like, but I am a very blessed person. Like, I'm, I have lots of good things. I'm very blessed. I don't know. I have a weird relationship with God.
Yeah.
And I think that it makes me have, I don't know. It just seems like to see his relationship play out like that is it was strange for me. Yeah. I think that was just, the prayer just seemed weird because it seemed like a person it just seemed superficial, I think, is basically, it just became like a good luck rather than a prayer. I don't know what's going on with Lil Wayne and religion.
I guess, well, like, what's the purpose of prayer in your mind?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I mean, aside from, like, open communication with God, that's about...
I mean, I think that's it, right? So, is it inherently superficial to acknowledge in a group, like, I hope nobody gets hurt tonight? I think that's kind of a beautiful sentiment. The idea that Lil Wayne goes out and puts on this crazy stage show, which, by the way, like, we haven't mentioned that yet, but the bits of him on stage, the segments where they actually filmed him on stage, the audio is shit, but you can get an incredible sense of what it's like to see Lil Wayne on a stage performing.
Yeah.
He's such a dynamic and physical performer. And to know that perhaps one of the things that allows him to put on that show is the fact that he has acknowledged through his conduit to a super being that he wants everybody to be safe. He's able to put that out of his mind, put that anxiety out of his mind. You know, I've done what I can to ensure that everyone is safe. So now I can just go balls to the wall on this show. I can think only about the performance that I'm giving on stage. I'd really love to go see Lil Wayne at some point, man, like that.
Not because of Lil Wayne. I think rap is probably one of the worst mediums that transcribes to a live setting. It breaks my heart to say it, but I've been to some rap shows and I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah, it's hit or miss, but when you see someone who knows the formula, it's tight, man. Aesop Rock was really good. A rapper called Bus Driver puts on a really good show. I saw him open for Aesop Rock one time. So like, I don't have a great breadth of live hip hop experience, but
yeah,
some of the stuff that I have seen has been very memorable and well put together. I don't know. We're like an hour in.
Yeah, this is gonna be a weird episode.
Yeah. Well, Lil Wayne is a weird artist.
So let's talk Carter 4.
All right.
So we had our Carter 1 and 2, and then with Carter 3, we kind of get into this off the cuff, style that kind of throws him into this superstar, most famous rapper alive status. And it's also probably worth mentioning that these albums didn't come out like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, there are like albums and mixtapes in between each one. So if it seems like there are huge amounts of growth or change in between these albums, it's because that there were a multitude of things before, in between them. There were stepping stones. What are your overall thoughts about the Carter 4?
I liked it. It seemed like a natural progression from the Carter 3, I would say. Like, it's weirder than the Carter 3, maybe a little more experimental. It has some troubling stuff about women on it.
Yeah.
I liked hearing Jadakiss. I always and Bun B. They're on a couple songs. Not a couple songs each, but you know what I mean.
I think I noticed he tried to go back. Well, he stepped away from the intro, interlude, outro thing on the Carter 3. The Carter 3 was just like a collection of bangers, essentially.
Yeah.
He tried to bring that back in this album to, like, I think maybe provide a little bit of cohesion with the whole album. But I think that really kind of fails. I think this is a very inconsistent, album. I think it's very weird. And there's just some very interesting things on it. I think How to Love and How to Hate are like the two most cringy. So, I mean, it's not T-Pain's fault that auto-tune thing came and went so fast and so hard.
I think T-Pain is probably the only person to properly use auto-tune to this day, with the exception of Lil Wayne at times.
That was also a thing I actually didn't even consider. The Carter 3 was really when a lot of that auto-tune stuff started.
Yeah, with Kanye.
Yeah. I mean, for Lil Wayne, though, there was really no auto-tune on 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I didn't even really consider that. But the only thing I really did, I think, weirdly, overall, I think the production is super strange in the Carter 4. Lil Wayne's voice is so high-pitched throughout it, and he just, I don't know if this is like a weird thought, but he sounds thirsty the whole time. Like, his voice has this weird, like, it just sounds uncomfortable, especially if you ever listen to it in, like, headphones. Like, I think 6 Foot, 7 Foot is probably, in my opinion, the best song on the album.
I agree.
second best, because I think John is one of the fucking sickest Lil Wayne songs.
And those were both my favorite songs too. So like weird that we're on the same.
We're on the same.
Weird that they're
but
on the
then
same page
compared
with
to some of the other stuff on this, I think those are easily the two best
songs.
songs.
Those are far and away the best two songs. Like it's not like it's a big jump for those two songs. They are way above everything else on the album.
There are a couple. President Carter is good, and I think Blunt Blowin' has its moments. Mm-hmm. But there's just a lot of experimentation that doesn't pan out in this. Similar to, I mean, not similar, that's the wrong word. For example, as I mentioned before we were recording, there's a lot of like love songs for men on this album. I had noticed when I was listening to this. And I don't know if do you think that that's an intentional move? I should probably elaborate on that. I think Lil Wayne writes love songs, I think possibly with the intention so that women will find enjoyment in the music, not just hard-hitting gangster rap. But I don't think that those songs hit the target for women. I think that they're like love songs for men to listen to about women in their lives. How do you feel about that?
Well, I can't speak to the appeal of Lil Wayne to women other than to tell you that Megan does not particularly care for Lil Wayne. I have not played her How to Hate.
Yeah.
We have not listened.
Maybe we won't.
Yeah, maybe that's not an experiment that we're going to perform ever. But yeah, I don't think, like, I can't speak for women. I'm not women. I'm not, in no way am I a mouthpiece for women. As I am not a woman, and I know several, but I don't know their opinions about everything. Nor can I really speak to Lil Wayne's intentions, because I don't think Lil Wayne could speak to Lil Wayne's intentions. But I think that what I can say with confidence is that Lil Wayne does not stretch very far outside of Lil Wayne's personal mind space. So the idea that Lil Wayne is writing love songs that Lil Wayne would like to hear, and therefore that men in general would like to hear more than the average woman, I think there's probably something to that. I don't necessarily think that he sits down and thinks, I'm going to write a love song that will be sort of wish fulfillment for men. But I think that it is just, it's outside of his capability to write a song that is not directly from Lil Wayne's personal perspective.
I'm going to double down.
Yeah.
I think starting, maybe, I think How Man I Miss My Dogs is a little too on the nose off the Carter one. But I think Lil Wayne has developed a pretty good relationship with T-Pain. They had a couple songs around the time that this came out, and they just now finally released the T-Wayne album this year. I didn't even listen to it.
I haven't listened to it either.
But it's a collaborative between the two of them. I think songs like Comfortable and How to Love and maybe Nightmares of the Bottom are Lil Wayne trying to do what T-Pain does. Because I think T-Pain is very effective at writing a romantic piece that, same thing, not a woman, can't speak for women. But in my opinion, I think that he writes romantic songs that women can listen to and, for the most part, enjoy more than ones that objectify women or say horrible shit about women. But same thing. I know lots of women that love rap music that has themes of objectifying women, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone should listen to rap music because it's sick. But I don't think you should ever feel guilty about listening to any kind of music because of the themes of the music. But I think T-Pain has the ability to write those like kind of pluck at your heartstrings love songs of a more modern age. And I think Lil Wayne tries to do that, but completely misses the target of like, I'm going to make a song about, like, I think Comfortable is like one of the funniest songs ever. Just like, it's like this love song, but it's like, but don't get too comfortable because I'm fucking Lil Wayne. If you don't fucking keep up the pace, I'll find somebody else. I'm Lil Wayne. I think anytime he tries to write these songs for men or women where like love is the central theme of the song, they're just fucking off the mark and offensive as shit. Like,
okay, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think I agree completely with that. I think that lines up with what I'm saying, which is like Lil Wayne does not know how to think from the point of view of anyone but Lil Wayne.
Yeah.
It's all facets of his fucking diamond of a mind.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately, like, I'm glad we fell back on the documentary so much, because I really, when I was listening to this and making notes, I didn't have a whole lot to say about the Carter 4, other than there's a few great songs, but other than that, it's kind of an inconsistent album that, in my opinion, fails to hold up to the Carter 2 and 3, which were kind of his peaks, once again, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you want to wrap this one up?
Yeah.
All right. What's your wrap-up for the Carter 3 and 4? Actually, what's your wrap-up for all of the Carters that have been released thus far? What's your take on them?
I think they're all pretty good. I think they all have some moments on them. You could make a bangin' playlist with songs from each one. You could even make a bangin' playlist with equal proportion of songs from each one, I would say. I think 2 and 3 are the high points of Lil Wayne's career. I think if you're a hip-hop head, the Carter 2 might be more your pace. If you just like fucking good music without any like ego about it, the Carter 3 might be more your pace. Just got some good songs on it. And hopefully the Carter 5 will ever come out.
I just wish the best for Lil Wayne, man. Like,
yeah.
it's got to be hard for him to have this project that he worked on and not be able to release it. You know, like that can't weigh easy on his mind.
It's gotta. I feel. I mean, this isn't too much of a stretch because of knowing what we know about Lil Wayne, but that must bother him on a daily basis. That he's trapped without being able to not only do the one thing that he's done his whole life, but to, you know, do the one, it's like the one thing that he's exceptional at, and it's all he's ever done, and he's being kind of held hostage. You know, I think that's a sad state.
His work is being held hostage by his surrogate father, right?
Yeah.
That's fucking painful, man.
Yeah.
Like, watch the scene from the documentary where Birdman buys him that Rolls Royce, and then think about the situation between them right now, and just, like, try not to cry.
Rap's a weird game, man.
Yeah.
Glad I have nothing to do with it.
Man, that's painful. And I feel a very personal connection to Lil Wayne. More personal than I could feel if I had listened to a bunch of his interviews. You know, it goes past the level of persona and the level of opinions and into the level of like a heart-to-heart connection. He's bearing his soul on these albums, warts and all, you know. Like, this is who Lil Wayne is. And trying to square that with his current situation with Birdman. I mean, I don't know the details well enough to recount it. Do you know the details well enough to summarize it for the listeners?
Yeah, or at least I think I do. Basically, when you sign a music contract with somebody, there are certain ways you can sign on. You can sign on for a time period or a certain number of albums. Lil Wayne has signed on to Birdman's label, Cash Money, for a certain number of albums, and through different loopholes and things like that, Birdman is holding the Carter 5. He's basically shelved it. So Lil Wayne cannot release it and not finish up his contractual obligation. They started having some problems, and I guess Lil Wayne made it clear that he was going to be leaving Cash Money as soon as his contract was up, and so Birdman made it so he cannot meet his contractual obligations. So he's essentially held hostage on his label, all while the label can still make money off of Lil Wayne by album sales or however, you know, however merch and stuff, however they make money, not off of new music coming out. Birdman's raking in those Lil Wayne checks.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty big bummer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some abusive shit.
Did you, did I mention to you last week about the one person who has heard the Carter 5?
Fucking the Shkreli, right?
I don't know if he has.
Martin Shkreli claims to have a copy of the Carter 5, but I don't know the...
So, how...
It's Quentin Tarantino.
How that...
Shigeru Miyamoto.
How the Carter 5 leaked. Weirdest fucking thing. Typical for Lil Wayne, though. Mm-hmm. Lil Wayne only listens to his own music. Lil Wayne sold one of his cars to somebody and left a burned copy of the Carter 5 in the car.
That's fucking
when
incredible.
He sold it to the guy.
That is incredible.
And then that person... Now, I had not thought of that, but now that you said Shkreli, I do think I remember him hearing about he bought it from... The guy approached Shkreli about buying it because he knew the whole Wu-Tang Shaolin thing and sold it to him.
That's a bummer.
Martin Shkreli really just fucking shit up.
He's a troll, Yeah. He's an internet troll. He's probably on the alt-right.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, on that note. So, it feels weird to talk about this because in some ways Christmas feels so far away, but really it's not. We're about 5 episodes out from Christmas. So, we are going to be getting into our next little series.
It's a 4-parter.
A 4-parter.
Projected 4 parts.
We also, I actually forgot when we were planning, kind of, we gotta squeeze that mystery guest.
Oh yeah, we gotta
squeeze
him in there somewhere. Do you think he would mind shelving that episode till the new year?
Probably not.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out, though. So, we're going to be doing a new series about... video game consoles.
Yes. The greatest console of all time. The G-Coat.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, Ben brought up a great point. We've talked about kind of hashing out the greatest video game console of all time. And before we were recording, Ben brought up the fact that Christmas would be a really good time to do that because when you're a kid, you have no money. So Christmas is when you get the next new console. And,
you ain't buying that GameCube with your fucking lunch money, man.
With your lawnmower money.
Yeah.
And I think that's very accurate. Usually you had to wait until the major holidays to be able to get your next console. Games and consoles are usually put out around the holiday season.
Yeah. Nintendo traditionally was like November, if I remember correctly.
And not only that, where you didn't have the money to buy them yourself... At least in the era that you and I grew up, we were living in the time of the console war. You would have to read about these systems coming out. You couldn't have a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis unless you were like a rich butthole kid, but I certainly fucking wasn't.
Me neither.
So if you were lucky on Christmas, you would get the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis. So for me anyway, I don't know about you, a lot of my time as a kid was playground conversations about what's the best console.
You developed tribal affinity for your console of choice.
And I mean, if you got one and you wanted yours choice to be the best one, so like if your friend got a Sega and you got a Super Nintendo, on the playground you kind of had to justify your choice about this. Well, mine's the best because I have Metroid, shit like that. So we're going to be doing how many parts did we say? 4-part series. We're going to be going through each generation of consoles
that we know of.
Yeah,
right. This is from personal experience. We're not experts on this on this situation, on this subject. Though I do claim to be an expert pretty regularly about video games.
I think we have determined that we're going to shave off things like Pong consoles and Atari and arcade.
We're going to shave off everything before Nintendo got in the game.
Yep.
Yep.
So we'll be putting some consoles against each other, briefly talking about some personal experiences, pros and cons, great games, bad games.
I foresee it being a pretty freewheeling conversation.
Yeah, we're just going to talk about... I'm sure some Christmas shit is going to come up about us talking about games we got for Christmas and stuff. And for our final episode, we're going to take the we're going to do our traditional battle royal. Mm-hmm. We're going to take the winner of each round and try to determine the official Ben and Curt Till It Hurts sponsored best console of all time.
Yep.
And I'm going to say right now, I'm throwing it down.
Yep.
We're going to have to agree. We're going to have
to come to a consensus.
We'll have to come to an agreement about the best one. We can't.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can agree with that.
So hopefully, so that's good because there's not going to be a lot of homework for you guys. You're going to be busy Christmas shopping. Yep. In fact, I just got a really warm feeling in my heart thinking about you guys driving around Christmas shopping, listening to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts in between destinations.
It's the way it's meant to be.
Hashing it out.
Yep.
So we'll be doing that.
It's going to be kind of our holiday buyer's guide for the last 30 years.
Yeah. So is there anything else we need to say about that? I think that's about...
Nope. If you don't like video games, sorry.
Tune out for a few weeks.
Merry fucking Christmas, guys.
But after that, I think, it's pretty safe to say we're going to be getting back into some movies and music and stuff.
Yep.
I think this is a long time coming because I think video games have been kind of underrepresented.
Yeah.
On B and C till at H.
Man, it's hard to fit video games in there.
It is.
Video games are long and often terrible. It's really hard to talk for a long time about video games because they're so bad.
Or the problem that I have is that I'll have such a strong connection to a franchise like Fallout or Pokemon or Resident Evil that how can I only talk about that for an hour? How can I say everything that I know and love and feel about this franchise in 1 hour?
Yeah.
Especially with someone like Ben who just disagrees with me the whole time.
Yep. I'm very, very disagreeable. I'm hard to come to terms with.
So, that's it. Next time we're going to be talking about some older... We're going 8-bit to 16-bit consoles.
Yep, 8-bit and 16-bit. We're talking your Master Systems. We're talking your Nintendo Entertainment Systems. Your Super Nintendo Entertainment Systems. Your Genesis.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
I think I'll play Sonic 2 the whole time we do the podcast.
That's going to be rad. Yeah. Maybe it can just be a Sonic 2 Let's Play.
Yeah, we can watch my old Sonic 2 Let's Play while we...
This is going to be the commentary track for the DVD release of Curtis's Sonic 2 Let's Play.
Yes!
Finally! What everyone's been waiting for.
We're wrapping it up now, aren't we?
We've been wrapping it up for 20 minutes.
Do you have anything else to say?
Nope.
Okay. As always, you can listen to more Ben and Curt Till It Hurts and Black Gold Podcast by subscribing to the Black Gold Podcast channel on iTunes and Stitcher. You can also stream it from Buzzsprout or YouTube. If you're a listener of the show, please give us a rating or drop us a review on iTunes. It helps the show a lot, and we really appreciate it. I have been seeing some of those iTunes reviews, the ratings trickling in.
Yeah?
I really appreciate it. A lot of good ratings.
Oh, good. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, a lot of 4 stars and 5 stars.
Well, what about those 4-star ratings? If you have a problem with the show...
That's the thing. I love any love, I love any hate that we get, but reviews are really kind of, I love a good rating, I love a bad rating, but reviews and constructive criticism are really what's going to get stuff moving on there. I'd love to see some written out reviews if you guys get a chance. But
that's your homework?
That's your,
Please don't complain too much.
No one's going to be making you watch 4 Quentin Tarantino movies this week. Write us a fucking 200-word review.
Write an essay, a brief paragraph. It's all we ask. No, we are very appreciative of everything, and it's really cool to know that people are listening to the show.
Man, speaking of which, we talked about this before, but we did not mention this is episode 20.
Episode 20. How is that happening?
Till It Hurts. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
We were doing the show bi-weekly when we started, which meant about 25 episodes per year.
Yep.
But we didn't start until a few months in, so it's kind of weird. I noticed today that now that we've switched to a weekly show, we're pretty much on par. We're going to have about 25 episodes.
Yeah, that's why we went weekly. Yeah. We needed to rush to
Afterward, we're going back to bi-weekly.
Yeah, it was really going to bug us that
we're
going to
go back to those 3.5 hour podcasts.
Yeah, bi-weekly, 3.5 hours. Get ready.
I will say that going weekly and having these shorter podcasts is, even though we have to get together twice as often, is so much easier.
It's great.
Than sitting here for 4 fucking hours.
Man, that was... How did we ever do that?
It was summer. We were in a good place.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
But I really love where Ben and Curt Till It Hurts is going. I think once we kind of channeled in. Thank God for Texarcism.
Man, Texarcism is where we found it.
That really broke the mold on what we're doing and eliminating some categories. Yep. That's been really good. So I think it's going great. We're 20 episodes in, but that's just one more reason why I would love to get your guys' input. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CurtCake5K. Give me some feedback on there. Leave a review. Do whatever you want.
Send him hate mail.
Send me hate mail. My home address is
P.O. Box 451.
In case you want to come fucking rob Black Gold Studios blind.
Please don't.
Please do not.
We need this stuff. We can't replace it.
I could not afford to do a new podcast if my stuff were stolen.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, that's going to be it for this week. We'll be back. Maybe I don't want to commit to this, so I won't. I'll just leave it there. Yeah. We'll be back next time.
I don't want to commit to another episode.
We'll be back to talk about some console wars and our pros and cons for greatest console of all time. We will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Our mics are still on. So you don't have to say your answer, but do you think you know what your favorite console is? That's
What's
a weird
that?
noise.
Is it windy outside? What's happening? Is it the big one?
I'm waiting for trumpets.
This is it. This is how the world ends.
My heater doesn't...
Curtis, any final thoughts on Lil Wayne before we all die and ascend to heaven?
Hopefully. I think that was my heater, but that didn't sound normal. What is this, around 30 minutes? I'll have to keep an ear out for that.
Yeah. Oh, man. Anyway.
Yeah.